Ambassador Grolix TK moved nervously in his floating chair. His big bug-like eyes looked at the empty human seats for the 5th time in 1 hour. This was not normal. Humans were often loud and seemed careless, but they were never late to important meetings. They were always on time, like clockwork. Still no word from Earth? He asked his helper. None, Ambassador. All messages stopped 42 hours ago. The last one was just a normal weather satellite update. The big council room, usually, filled with the noise of 200 different alien species talking about galaxy matters, had become strangely quiet. Everyone was looking at the empty human section. The humans, called Deathworlders because they grew up on a harsh, heavy, radiation-filled planet they named Earth, had become very important to galaxy politics in just 70 years since first meeting aliens. Admiral Joe Miller, the human representative to the Galaxy Defense Committee, had not missed a meeting in 15 years. Captain Sam Wells, the main human for trade talks, was supposed to present a new sharing plan this morning. Neither had shown up. Maybe they are just having trouble with their message systems, said Ambassador Julak of the Mare Group, but his changing skin color showed he was worried. Garlexike knew better. Humans kept backup message systems that could work through almost any disaster. Even during their short civil fight on Mars colony, they kept talking to other planets. Send a scout ship to the Sol system, ordered High Chancellor Voss, the oldest of the council members. Right away. Everyone agreed without debate, itself a strange thing in galaxy politics. As the members left the room, Garlexike heard 2 Vindari warriors, some of the strongest fighters in the galaxy, talking quietly. If something has silenced the humans, one began, then we should all be afraid, the other finished. Garlexike felt cold fear run down his hard outer shell. He remembered what human military officers often said during planning meetings. We're not quiet unless we're hunting or being hunted. The universe was about to find out which one it was. Captain Alice Powell of the Galaxy Confederation scout ship Lightseeker felt growing worry as her ship neared the Sol system. 20 years of space travel had sharpened her instincts, and something felt very wrong. Any answer to our calls, communications officer? She asked. Lieutenant Cree, her Valerian communications expert, shook his head, his feather crest moving with concern. Nothing, Captain. I've tried all frequencies. Even the old radio waves they still check for historical reasons. Scanners show power is on for Earth, the Moon, Mars, and the space stations, reported navigator Paul Wright, the only human on the scout ship. His face had grown very pale during their approach. But there's no movement, no ships traveling, nothing. Powell had picked Wright specially for this mission, knowing his understanding of human behavior would be valuable. Now watching his face, she realized he was as confused as the rest of them. What would make your people go silent, Lieutenant Wright? She asked directly. Wright's forehead wrinkled. War would increase messages, not silence them. Natural disaster would make them call for help. Disease would. He stopped suddenly, his eyes getting wide. Unless what, Lieutenant? There's an old plan, something from before we met aliens. If humanity ever found something so dangerous that we couldn't risk bringing attention to ourselves or the rest of the galaxy, we would use blackout protocol. His voice had dropped to almost a whisper. Complete message silence, minimal power use, no space travel. You're saying the humans are hiding? Asked Cree in disbelief. The same species that charged Crixian battleships with mining vessels? The people who told the swarm to come get some when their colony was threatened? Wright nodded slowly. If humans are purposely being quiet, it's not because we're scared for ourselves. We're protecting something or someone. Powell made her decision. We'll send 1 shuttle to Earth, small crew, just myself and Lieutenant Wright. The rest of you stay at the edge of the system, ready to leave quickly. As Powell and Wright got the shuttle ready, she noticed him checking his gun with careful attention. Do you expect trouble from your own people, Lieutenant? Wright put the weapon on his hip. No, Captain. But whatever made 8 billion humans all decide to go quiet at once, that's what I'm worried about. The shuttle left the Lightseeker and began going toward Earth. a beautiful blue ball that had somehow become the most scary sight in Powell's long career. The shuttle landed in an empty field outside what Wright said was Washington, D.C., one of Earth's main government centers. The city looked fine but eerily empty. No vehicles moved on the streets, no aircraft flew in the sky. "It's like everyone just disappeared," Powell said, her translator changing her native Galustrian language into English for Wright. "No," Wright said, pointing to a far building. "Movement, people are watching us." Powell used her eye implants to see better and spotted them, faces in windows quickly moving away when noticed. "They're hiding. Let's go toward the White House," Wright suggested. "If anyone's in charge of whatever this is, they'll be there." They walked through silent streets, the strange quiet broken only by the sound of their footsteps. Sometimes Powell caught glimpses of humans looking from buildings, but none came out. "Your kind is not usually so shy," she said. "No," Wright agreed, his hand hovering near his weapon. "We're not." As they got near the government complex, 3 people came out from a building ahead, walking with purpose. Wright stood up straighter. "Military," he whispered to Powell. "Special forces based on how they carry themselves." The leader of the group, a serious-looking woman with short gray hair, stopped several meters away. "Lieutenant Paul Wright, Galaxy, Confederation Scout Corps," she stated rather than asked. "Yes, ma'am," Wright confirmed. "This is Captain Alice Powell of the Lightseeker. We're checking on Earth's sudden silence." "I'm General Karen Jones. You shouldn't have come." Despite the warning, she motioned for them to follow. "But since you're here, you need to see this." They were led through many security checkpoints, each with more guards than the last, deep under the White House. Powell noticed that the human soldiers looked at her with caution but not anger. Finally, they entered a large underground room filled with monitoring equipment. In the center stood a force field, and inside it floated what looked like a small, crystal-like object about the size of Powell's hand. 3 days ago, this object appeared in orbit around Jupiter, General Jones explained. "A normal mining operation found it. When ships got close, it sent a signal just once. We caught it and brought it here to study." "What is it?" Wright asked, staring at the gently glowing crystal. A civilian scientist stepped forward. "We think it's a beacon of sorts. The signal it sent was aimed at a specific point outside our galaxy." "A beacon," Powell repeated, her outer shell plates tightening in alarm. "Calling what?" General Jones's face was serious. "That's why we used blackout protocol. The signal contained information, a complete scan of our system focusing specifically on population centers and defense capabilities." Powell felt her heart sink. "You think it's an advanced scout for an invasion force?" "We know it is," corrected another scientist, turning on a holographic display. "We decoded part of the signal. It roughly translates as viable harvest identified. The rest seems to be coordinates and population estimates." Wright grew pale. "You went silent to avoid drawing attention, to make whoever sent this think they made a mistake." General Jones nodded. "If we can't fight them, and the technology gap suggests we can't, then our only option is to hide. Make them think their beacon malfunctioned or was destroyed naturally." "The rest of the galaxy needs to know," Powell said. "The rest of the galaxy needs to shut up too," Jones countered. "If these harvesters are real, they're a threat to everyone. We've seen this pattern before in our history. Scouts followed by conquerors. We're trying to buy time." Powell studied the crystal. "In all my years exploring space, I've never seen technology like this. What makes you think hiding will work?" For the first time, Jones's stern expression faltered, "Because it has to. We've calculated the signal's destination. Based on light speed, whatever's coming won't arrive for at least 6 months. We need that time to prepare." Wright looked at Powell, then back at his superior officer. "Captain Powell has access to Confederation technology that might help analyze this object better." Powell nodded. "The Confederation must be informed, but carefully. If these harvesters are as advanced as you fear, they could be watching standard communication channels." General Jones thought about this for a long moment before nodding. "Very well. But understand this, Captain. Humanity didn't go quiet out of fear for ourselves. If these harvesters are coming, they threaten all thinking life. Powell felt a chill at those words. The humans, the galaxy's famous Deathworlders, weren't hiding to save themselves. They were trying to protect everyone else. The emergency meeting of the Galaxy Confederation Council was conducted under unprecedented security. For the first time in its 5,000-year history, all electronic recording devices were banned. Ancient methods of physical note-taking were used instead. Captain Powell stood before the assembled representatives, her report causing whispers of alarm to spread through the room. The humans' actions, while done on their own, were not without good reason, she concluded. Their scientists have determined that the beacon uses technology far beyond our current understanding. It appears designed to identify worlds with substantial biomass for collection. High Chancellor Voss leaned forward. You're suggesting we face a threat from outside our galaxy? A species that harvests others? That is the humans' belief. Yes, Powell confirmed. And based on my examination of the artifact, I find their conclusion believable. Admiral Miller, who had been allowed to attend via a secure one-way transmission from Earth, spoke up. Our analysis indicates the harvester. Civilization operates on a cycle. They send scouts to identify resource-rich systems, then send collection fleets. Based on the beacon's transmission strength and direction, we estimate 6 standard months before their arrival. 6 months to prepare for an invasion by a technologically superior force? Ambassador Julak's skin had turned a sickly yellow. Impossible. We should evacuate threatened systems immediately. To where? Countered Ambassador Gerlextka. If these harvesters can cross between galaxies, nowhere in our galaxy is truly safe. The council room erupted in panicked debate. Species that had been enemies for generations now found themselves facing a common threat. Powell watched as fear spread like a disease. Finally, a sharp whistle cut through the noise. All eyes turned to Lieutenant Wright, standing beside Powell. With respect, he said, his voice firm despite addressing the galaxy's most powerful leaders, this panic is exactly what we hope to avoid by using Blackout Protocol. And what would you suggest instead, human? Asked a Taurian representative, voice dripping with scorn. Hide under your beds and hope these harvesters don't notice an entire galactic civilization? Wright's expression remained calm. No, we fight. Another wave of whispers filled the room. Earth has already begun preparations, Admiral Miller explained. We've reactivated old military production facilities, converted civilian industries to war efforts. The beacon gave us valuable information about the harvesters' technology, their weaknesses as well as their strengths. Weaknesses? Chancellor Voss perked up. Explain. The beacon's power source relies on a form of energy manipulation that becomes unstable when exposed to certain radiation frequencies, Miller said. Our scientists believe the harvesters themselves may share this vulnerability. Powell stepped forward again. Humanity is requesting a united defense, pooling resources, knowledge, and military assets from all Confederation species. You expect us to follow human military leadership? Scoffed the Vindari ambassador. The same humans who were hiding until discovered? No, Miller replied firmly. We expect to work together as equals. But understand this. Humanity will fight regardless of your decision. Deathworlders don't surrender easily, especially when protecting others. The council fell silent at that declaration. It was Powell who finally broke the silence. I've spent my career studying different species throughout our galaxy. Each has unique strengths and perspectives. The Vindari are unmatched tactical fighters. The Mer Collective's biotechnology could be adapted to combat these harvesters. The Taurian shield technology might be our best defense. She gestured to Wright beside her. And the humans. These Deathworlders evolved on a planet that tried to kill them daily. They've survived countless natural disasters, wars, plagues. They understand fighting against overwhelming odds. Chancellor Voss studied the assembled representatives. Perhaps the humans' initial instinct to go quiet was wise, not out of cowardice but strategy, gathering information before acting. Slowly, heads began to nod around the chamber. We will need to maintain communication blackouts across multiple systems, GarLXTK suggested. Make it appear as though large portions of our galaxy are uninhabited. while simultaneously preparing our defenses, added the Vindari ambassador, warming to the strategy. As the council began formulating plans, Powell noticed Wright watching with a slight smile. "You knew they'd come around," she said quietly. Wright shrugged. "The Confederation has never faced an external threat like this before, but every species here understands survival, even if their methods differ from ours." "When Deathworlders go quiet, the universe panics," Powell mused. "But perhaps that panic was necessary to unite us." "It's not panic anymore," Wright corrected, looking at the now purposeful activity of the Council. "It's determination." 5 months later, the combined fleet of the Galaxy Confederation gathered at the edge of the Sol system. Over 10,000 ships from 200 species formed the largest military force ever assembled in the galaxy's history. On the bridge of the Confederation flagship Defiance, Admiral Miller stood with the Supreme War Council, representatives from the 12 most militarily significant species in the Confederation. "The Harvester fleet has been detected crossing the galaxy boundary," reported Captain Powell, now serving as Miller's chief intelligence officer. 17 vessels, each approximately the size of Earth's moon. "Size isn't everything," remarked Frank Wilson, Earth's lead scientist on the Harvester Defense Project. "Our analysis of the beacon has paid off. We've confirmed their technology is vulnerable to the radiation pulse weapons we've developed. Assuming we can get close enough to use them," cautioned the Vindari war chief. "Their advanced scouts will detect our fleet long before we're in range." "Not if they can't see us," Wright, now promoted to commander, pointed to the display showing the thousands of ships powered down to minimal life support. "The blackout protocol worked once. It will work again, on a larger scale." The strategy was bold. Rather than trying to intercept the Harvesters at the galaxy's edge, the Confederation forces had hidden themselves throughout the Sol system. Earth itself appeared abandoned, its cities darkened, its orbital facilities seemingly broken down. "They'll still scan the area," noted the Taurian defense minister. "Our ships will be detected." "Not with the cloaking technology the Mir Collective has provided," Wilson countered. "Combined with positioning our vessels within the system's natural radiation belts, we should be effectively invisible until they begin their harvest operations." Miller studied the tactical display. "The first harvester vessel will enter the I system in approximately 48 hours. All ships are to maintain complete communication silence until the signal is given." As the War Council dispersed to their respective command posts, Powell approached Wright at his station. "The quiet before the storm," she observed. "Your people have an appropriate saying for everything." Wright's expression was serious. "We have another saying. The predator never sees the prey that sees it first." Across the Sol system, Confederation forces settled into their hiding places. Vindari strike cruisers nestled within Mars's asteroid ring. Taurian defense platforms disguised as debris orbited Jupiter. Human stealth ships hid in Earth's oceans. All waiting, watching, silent. 2 days later, the first harvester ship entered. The system, massive, crystal-like, beautiful in its alien design. It approached Jupiter first, sending out smaller vessels that began systematic scans of the gas giant and its moons. "They're following the beacon survey pattern," whispered Wilson in the dimly lit command center beneath Earth's surface, where General Jones monitored the situation with Confederation observers. "Just as we predicted. Slowly, methodically, the harvester fleet spread throughout the system. 3 of the moon-sized vessels approached Earth, their crystal structures breaking sunlight into dazzling patterns. "Harvester ships have sent out collection vessels," reported a sensor operator. "They're beginning atmospheric entry." Jones checked the final calculations one last time. "Send the attack signal on the secure frequency. All units execute Operation Siu, Thunderclap." Across the solar system, thousands of ships simultaneously powered up. The trap was sprung. The first wave of Confederation fighters targeted the Harvester collection vessels, destroying them before they could report back to their motherships. Meanwhile, larger vessels moved into position around the main Harvester. Ship's weapons charged. Fire radiation pulse weapons, ordered Admiral Miller from the Defiance. Beams of concentrated radiation, specifically calibrated to match the frequency vulnerability identified from the beacon, struck the crystal harvester ships. Where the beams hit, the alien material darkened, cracked, and began to fall apart. The harvesters, caught completely by surprise, attempted to regroup. One of the massive ships managed to launch what appeared to be defensive measures. Crystal drones that began attacking Confederation vessels with energy weapons. "Second wave, engage," commanded the Vindari war chief. Vindari and human ships selected for their maneuverability swarmed the drones, drawing their fire, while larger vessels continued the assault on the motherships. The battle raged across the Sol system. 2 Confederation carriers were lost when a harvester ship collapsed in on itself, creating a temporary gravitational distortion. But the carefully laid trap was working. One by one, the harvester vessels were falling. On Earth, Jones and her team monitored the battle from their underground command center. 3 harvester ships attempting to retreat from the system, reported a tactical officer. "Intercept them," Jones ordered. "None can escape to warn others." The Taurian defense minister, observing from Earth Command, looked concerned. "If there are more of these harvesters beyond our galaxy, destroying their fleet might only delay the inevitable. They'll send more when this group fails to return." Jones turned to him, her expression resolute. "That's phase 2 of our plan. Once we've neutralized this fleet, we'll recover their intergalactic communication technology. Then we'll send our own message." "What message?" asked the surprised Taurian. Captain Powell, who had been monitoring from nearby, answered for Jones. "That this galaxy is protected, that the species here are not prey to be harvested, but predators defending their home. And if they come anyway?" The Taurian pressed. Wright, who had arrived from the Defiance to deliver a tactical update, smiled grimly. "Then they'll discover what happens when Deathworlders don't go quiet." The final harvester ship fell 3 days later. Teams of scientists from across the Confederation immediately began studying the wreckage, extracting technology and knowledge from the defeated invaders. 1 month after the battle, the Galactic Confederation Council reconvened. The mood was markedly different from the panic of their previous emergency session. Pride and unity had replaced fear. "Using the Harvester's own communication technology, we've sent a message to the coordinates found in the beacon," reported Admiral Miller. "Whether they heed our warning remains to be seen, but they now know that this galaxy stands united." Chancellor Voss rose from his seat. "For 5,000 years, the Confederation has maintained peace among our member species, despite our differences. Now faced with an external threat, we have proven that those differences make us stronger, not weaker." He turned to the human delegation. "When Deathworlders went quiet, the universe panicked, but they were right to do so. Their instinct to protect not just themselves but all thinking life in our galaxy revealed the true strength of these humans." Gruxtka chittered in agreement. "Perhaps we should rename them, not Deathworlders but Lifeguards." Laughter rippled through the chamber, a sound of relief, of celebration, of unity. As the formal session concluded, Powell found Wright standing by a window looking out at the stars. "Thinking about the harvesters?" she asked, joining him. "Thinking about what comes next," he replied. "For thousands of years, the species of this galaxy looked inward, focused on our differences. Now we're looking outward together." Powell considered this. "Your people have a saying for that too, I imagine?" Wright smiled. "Actually, yes. United we stand, divided we fall." "Simple, but accurate," Powell acknowledged, "though I prefer the new saying that's spreading through the Confederation." "Which is?" "When Deathworlders go quiet, pay attention," Powell said. "But when Deathworlders stand with you, the entire universe should beware." On Earth, humanity had begun rebuilding the communications network, restoring normal contact with their colonies and the wider galaxy. Children played again in parks, no longer hidden underground. Ships traveled the space lanes once more. But deep in secure facilities around the planet, Scientists and military planners continued their work. The Harvesters had been defeated, but the galaxy now knew it was not alone in the universe. Other threats might emerge from the vast darkness between galaxies. Next time, however, they would not face humanity alone, but a united galactic civilization that had learned its most important lesson. Sometimes the quietest voice carries the most serious warning. 2 years passed since the battle with the Harvesters. The Galaxy Confederation had grown stronger through its shared victory. Species that once barely spoke to each other now worked together on joint projects. Trade between worlds increased. Knowledge was shared more freely. Earth had become a center for galactic cooperation. The former human military base in Geneva had been transformed into the Confederation Defense Academy, where soldiers from all species trained together. Admiral Miller oversaw the program, with Wright as his second-in-command. Powell had been promoted to fleet commander and given command of the newly formed Rapid Response Division, a mixed species force designed to reach any part of the galaxy within days rather than weeks. On a cool autumn morning, Powell's ship arrived in Earth orbit for the annual Confederation Defense Summit. As she took a shuttle down to the surface, she admired the beauty of the blue planet. Hard to believe this was the home of the galaxy's most feared species. Powell met Wright at the landing pad. He had aged slightly in the 2 years since the Harvester battle, with a few gray hairs at his temples, but his eyes were as sharp as ever. "Welcome back to Earth, Fleet Commander." He greeted her with a smile. "Good to be back, Commander Wright," she replied. "How are the new cadets progressing?" "Remarkably well. The Vindari and Taurian units have finally stopped trying to outdo each other and started working together." They walked toward the main conference building, passing groups of aliens and humans in training exercises. "Any word from the deep space monitoring stations?" Powell asked quietly. Wright's expression grew serious. "Nothing conclusive. A few strange energy readings from the direction the Harvesters came from, but nothing that suggests another fleet." "Yet?" Powell added. "Yet," Wright agreed. Inside the main hall, representatives from all member species had gathered. General Jones, now head of the Confederation Intelligence Division, stood at the podium. "2 years ago, we faced an existential threat together and survived," she began. "The technology we recovered from the Harvester ships has advanced our understanding of space travel, energy manipulation, and communications beyond what we could have achieved in centuries of separate research." The audience nodded in agreement. It was true. The Harvester technology had been a treasure trove of scientific advancement. "But we cannot grow complacent," Jones continued. "Our deep space detectors have identified unusual energy patterns at the edge of our galaxy. While we have no confirmation these are related to the Harvesters, we must remain vigilant." Powell glanced at Wright. This was news to her. The energy readings must have been detected very recently. Jones brought up a holographic display showing a cluster of stars at the galaxy's edge. "We propose establishing a network of early warning outposts along the galactic boundary, staffed by mixed species crews and equipped with our most advanced detection systems." Chancellor Voss stood. "These outposts would require significant resources and personnel from all member worlds." "They would," Jones agreed. "But the alternative is to wait until a threat is upon us before responding." Ambassador Gerlex TK chittered softly. "The humans have a saying I've grown fond of, better safe than sorry. I believe it applies here." To Powell's surprise, the Vindari war chief was the next to speak. "The Deathworlders' instinct to prepare even in times of peace has proven wise before. The Vindari Collective will contribute ships and warriors to this defensive network." One by one, the representatives pledged support. What would have taken months of debate before the Harvester crisis was decided in a single session. After the meeting, Powell found herself walking the grounds of the Academy with Wright and Jones. "You didn't mention the energy readings in your reports to the fleet commanders," Powell said to Jones. "They were only confirmed yesterday," Jones replied. "Too recent for formal reports. The pattern matches what we saw from the Harvester ships, but at a much greater distance." "Another fleet?" Wright asked. "Possibly. Or a different species altogether. The universe is vast and we've only explored a tiny fraction of our own galaxy." Powell. looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the evening sky. Perhaps we should reach out, not wait for them to come to us. Jones considered this. Exploration rather than just defense? It's risky. So is sitting and waiting, Wright pointed out. Humans spent too long looking inward before we joined the Confederation. Now we have the chance to look outward as a united galaxy. Powell smiled at the familiar phrase. I believe Admiral Miller might agree with that approach. He already does, Jones said. He's proposed converting some of our defense vessels into long-range exploration ships. Mixed crews, scientific focus, but with defensive capabilities if needed. The best defense is knowledge, Wright said, another human saying. The three walked in comfortable silence for a moment, considering the possibilities. I've been offered command of the first exploration vessel, Jones said suddenly. The Confederation Council approved it this morning. Powell looked at her in surprise. Will you accept? I'm considering it. It would mean leaving Earth, possibly for years. Earth will still be here when you return, Wright said. And who knows what wonders you might discover out there. Jones smiled. That's what I'm counting on. 3 months later, Powell stood on the observation deck of Confederation Orbital Station Alpha, watching as the exploration vessel Horizon prepared for its maiden voyage. The sleek ship was larger than a standard cruiser, but smaller than a battleship, designed for speed and endurance rather than combat. General Jones, now Captain Jones of the Exploration Fleet, was completing final checks with her mixed species crew. The ship would travel to the edge of the galaxy, investigating the strange energy readings and looking beyond, into the vast darkness between galaxies. Wright joined Powell at the viewport. Nervous for her? A little, Powell admitted. We don't know what's out there. That's the point of exploring, Wright reminded her. Besides, if anyone can handle unexpected alien contact, it's the human who helped save the galaxy. With considerable help, Powell added. Wright laughed. Of course, no species succeeds alone. That's the lesson we all learned. The Horizon's engines began to glow as the ship prepared to depart. Powell's communication device chimed with an incoming message from Jones. Fleet Commander, we're ready for departure. Any last orders? Powell smiled. Just one, Captain. Remember that you represent not just humanity, but all the species of our galaxy. We'll be waiting to hear your reports. Understood, Commander. If we encounter anything interesting, you'll be the first to know. The Horizon moved gracefully away from the station, its engines flaring brightly as it accelerated. Within moments, it had disappeared into the depths of space, carrying representatives from 12 different species on humanity's most ambitious mission yet. Do you think they'll find the Harvester homeworld? Wright asked. Perhaps, Powell replied. Or something entirely new. The universe is full of surprises. Like humans going quiet to protect the galaxy, Wright suggested with a smile. Powell's mandibles clicked in amusement. Exactly, though I hope the next surprise is a pleasant one. As they turned to leave the observation deck, Powell noticed a group of young cadets, a mix of human and alien youths, watching the spot where the Horizon had vanished, their faces filled with wonder and determination. The next generation, Wright said, following her gaze. They'll go farther than we ever did. Together, Powell added. Always together, Wright agreed. That's the only way forward. 1 year into its mission, the exploration vessel Horizon made a discovery that would once again change the course of galactic history. Captain Jones sent an encrypted message back to Confederation headquarters. Found something, not harvesters. Request immediate conference. Within hours, the highest-ranking officials of the Confederation gathered in the secure chamber beneath Geneva. Admiral Miller, Commander Wright, Fleet Commander Powell, Chancellor Voss, and representatives from all major species waited anxiously as the quantum communication link was established. Captain Jones's face appeared on the main screen, her expression serious but not alarmed. Thank you for responding so quickly. What we've found requires immediate attention, but it's not a threat. At least not directly. Powell leaned forward. Explain, Captain. We followed the energy signatures to their source, a small planetoid at the very edge of our galaxy. It's artificial, Fleet Commander, a monitoring station of immense age. The room fell silent. Wright was the first to speak. How old? Our best estimate is over 50 million years, Jones replied. It appears to have been constructed by a civilization far more advanced than either us or the Harvesters. We've begun translating their records. She paused, then continued. According to what we've deciphered so far, they called themselves the Guardians. They seeded life throughout our galaxy and others, then created a network of monitoring stations to observe how that life evolved. Are they still active? Chancellor Voss asked. Jones shook her head. No evidence of that. The station has been operating autonomously for millions of years, collecting data and occasionally sending it somewhere. We haven't determined where yet. Admiral Miller stroked his chin thoughtfully. And the energy readings we detected? The station increased its power output when the Harvesters entered our galaxy, Jones explained. It appears to be programmed to monitor significant interstellar events. When we defeated the Harvesters, it began transmitting data at an unprecedented rate. We're being studied, Wright said quietly. Yes, but there's more, Jones continued. The Harvesters weren't unknown to the Guardians. According to the station's records, they visited our galaxy before, many times over millions of years. They arrive, harvest resources including biological material, then leave. Usually, no civilization is advanced enough to stop them. Powell's mandibles clicked in surprise. Until us. Exactly, Jones nodded. We're the first coalition in our galaxy's history to successfully repel them. The station recorded everything, our tactics, our technology, our cooperation across species, There any indication that whoever built this station might return? Chancellor Voss asked. Jones hesitated. Nothing definitive, but the transmission protocol suggests the data is being sent somewhere active, not just archived. It's possible the Guardians, or whatever they've evolved into, are still out there. The implications hung heavy in the air. If the Harvesters were merely one known threat in a much larger universe, what other dangers or opportunities might exist? Admiral Miller broke the silence. Captain, what would you recommend as our next course of action? We have two choices, Jones replied. We can destroy the station to prevent it from transmitting further data about us, or we can attempt to use it to establish contact with whoever is receiving its transmissions. Wright's eyes widened. You want to talk to them? I believe it's worth attempting, Jones said. The fact that they seeded life rather than merely harvesting it suggests a fundamentally different outlook than the Harvesters, and they may have information about other threats in nearby galaxies. Chancellor Voss turned to the assembled representatives. This is a decision that affects all our species. We must vote. The debate lasted for hours. Some argued for destroying the station immediately to protect their privacy and security. Others saw unprecedented opportunity in contacting a civilization so advanced. In the end, the vote was close but clear. They would attempt communication. 6 months later, the effort bore fruit. A response came, not to the station, but directly to Earth. A signal, elegant in its simplicity, provided coordinates for a meeting point in deep space at the exact midpoint between the Milky Way and Andromeda galaxies. The Confederation Council convened again, this time to select representatives for this historic first contact. Captain Jones was the obvious choice to lead the mission. To everyone's surprise, Powell volunteered as well. Are you certain, Fleet Commander? Admiral Miller asked. This mission could take years, even with our fastest ships. I am, Powell replied firmly. If these Guardians are as advanced as we believe, we need representatives from multiple species. Besides, Captain Jones and I work well together. Wright looked at his old friend with understanding. You've caught the exploration bug. Powell's mandibles clicked in amusement. Perhaps. Or perhaps I simply believe that looking outward is the future of our galaxy. The newly commissioned vessel, Unity, was constructed specifically for the mission, larger than the horizon, equipped with the best technology from all Confederation species, and designed for a journey that might last decades. Its crew of 50 represented 15 different species, each chosen for their expertise and adaptability. On the day of departure, the Unity orbited Earth one final time. In the observation lounge, Powell and Jones watched the blue planet shrink in the viewport. "Nervous?" Jones asked. "Excited," Powell corrected. "For millions of years, life in our galaxy evolved separately, each species convinced they were alone or special. Now we know better." Jones nodded. "First contact with the Confederation changed humanity. Meeting the Harvesters united us. I wonder how encountering the Guardians will transform us next." "That's what I find most remarkable about your species," Powell said. "Most races, when faced with something more powerful, react with fear or aggression. Humans respond with curiosity." "Not always," Jones admitted. "We went quiet when we discovered the Harvester beacon." "To protect others," Powell reminded her. "That's the difference. Your people don't fear the unknown for themselves. They worry about how it might impact everyone else." The final preparations for departure were completed. The Unity's engines hummed with power as it prepared to leave the solar system behind. "Admiral," Miller's voice came over the communication system. "Captain Jones, you are cleared for departure. Remember that you carry the hopes and trust of the entire Confederation with you." "We won't forget," Jones replied. "See you in a few decades, Admiral." As the Unity accelerated away from Earth, heading toward the unimaginable vastness between galaxies, Wright watched from Confederation headquarters. Beside him stood representatives from a dozen worlds, their eyes fixed on the tracking display as the ship moved further from home. "Do you think they'll find what they're looking for?" asked Ambassador Garlaxt. Wright considered this. "I think they'll find something none of us could have imagined. That's how exploration works." The Vendari war chief grunted in agreement. "When humans first joined the Confederation, many species feared them. Deathworlders, we called them. Dangerous and unpredictable. And now," Wright prompted, "now we understand. Humans are dangerous, yes, but mainly to those who threaten what they protect." The Vendari placed a clawed hand on Wright's shoulder. "Your people went quiet once to save the galaxy. Now you speak for all of us to the stars." Wright smiled as he watched the Unity's signal move steadily outward. "We've all come a long way." "Together," added Groxk. "Yes," Wright agreed. "That's the only part that really matters." As night fell across Earth, people of all species gathered to watch the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the familiar lights of their home galaxy, representatives of their united civilization were venturing into the true unknown. Whatever they found, threat or opportunity, danger or wonder, they would face it as one people, forged in the crucible of their shared history. When Deathworlders had gone quiet, the universe had panicked. But when they spoke again, with the united voice of all galactic species, the universe itself seemed to listen.